Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, 4 Keys to Effectively Manage an ERP Project. Our goal today is to provide you with beneficial insights that will help you get the most out of your enterprise technology investment. We'll kick off the session with brief introductions to today's experts, then we'll quickly move on to the main event, a thoughtful discussion on 4 keys to effectively manage an ERP project with industry experts from Ultra Consultants and Rootstock. I'd like to take a brief moment to let you know that Ultra Consultants is serving as your host today and to tell you a little bit about who we are. Since 1994, manufacturers and distributors throughout North America, as well as companies with global operations, have teamed with Ultra as trusted advisors and industry best practice experts to guide them through their business process improvement and enterprise technology transformation journeys. This is Kristen Renda, Marketing Program Manager at Ultra, and your moderator for today's webinar. I'd like to introduce today's experts. From Ultra, we have Methodology Director and Senior Consultant, Katrina McGuire. Katrina brings exceptional expertise in enterprise technology implementation, project management, operations, change management, and organizational re-engineering to every project. What's more, she has deep domain experience in a number of industry sectors, including manufacturing, telecom, healthcare, food service, and education. I'd also like to welcome our special guest expert, David Stevens, President with Rootstock Software. David has more than 25 years of manufacturing and technology experience and a proven track record of taking the customer experience to new levels of productivity and profitability. As the President of Rootstock Software, David provides strategic direction for all revenue channels, customer acquisition, solution architecture, and services activities. Thank you both very much for joining us today. And now I'd like to hand it over to David to give us a brief introduction to Rootstock.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you to all the attendees gathering today. We hope this is an insightful session and really looking forward to having a conversation here today with Ultra on the topic. Just for a couple of minutes beforehand, I thought I'd give a little bit of introduction to Rootstock. And if you think about the word Rootstock, it really talks about using a really good rootstock to create a new vine, typically used within the construct of vineyards. We're a Northern California headquartered company. So there's, a reference there to a lot of the great winemaking that takes place there. And really what we wanted to do, as we formed Rootstock over a decade ago was take what we had in terms of decades of experience in manufacturing, distribution, and supply chain ERP, and take the robust capabilities and functionalities that had grown in that genre of legacy ERP and bring it into a next generation of cloud technology. And so we wanted to take that rootstock of a strong, grafted ERP capability and marry it with a next generation cloud technology solution that can enable our customers to be more productive and to better serve their customers. That's kind of the evolution of Rootstock and our heritage and foundation as a company. Just to really quickly talk about that in terms that reference ERP and in the target markets that we serve, in particular manufacturing, you can see here that this is what you would typically expect in terms of business process elements that revolve around typical ERP capabilities. And if you build that out a level deeper, you can see different functionalities that come within those different business process areas. In many ways, a lot of this functionality is kind of table stakes in today's ERP world for manufacturers if you're really talking about robust ERP capability. And that's where Rootstock begins to differentiate itself as how we extend from there. So one of the ways we extend from a business process perspective is bringing in best-in-class sales, often thought of as CRM, marketing capabilities, and that's in relationship to our partnership with Salesforce and the fact that we're built inside Salesforce's technology infrastructure, and also Salesforce's world-class service offerings with concepts like Service Cloud, case management, field service, et cetera. And so we bring together the best of both worlds where ERP and CRM are combined together, and not just light capabilities in any respect, but more that heritage or legacy of deep ERP capabilities with the world-class capabilities of Salesforce. And just as important, and in many ways more important than that kind of functional architecture or business process support, is that that marrying of a next generation cloud technology platform into how ERP evolves in order to help you serve your customers. And so being built inside Salesforce allows us to take care of or take advantage of all of the investments that Salesforce makes in their platform technology. If you're not familiar with Salesforce as a technology provider, you might be familiar with them as the world's leading CRM and service management software, but they also provide the world's leading business-to-business cloud technology platform. And all of the capabilities you see here, capabilities like the recent announcement of the closure and finalization of the acquisition of Slack, to their acquisition a few years ago of MuleSoft in the integration space, or Tableau about a year and a half ago, as well as just the foundational capabilities of their, decades mature, true multi-tenant cloud technology platform, brings capabilities to you as a client to further engage your customers, your suppliers, in a way that's seamless to working internally within your organization. And that's ultimately the power of the platform and the communication capabilities that it provides. And when we marry that together with what we spoke about before in terms of the business process, you can see how leveraging these business process use cases, as you would typically expect from ERP, on that next generation cloud technology platform just really opens up a new world of providing excellent service, connected service to your clients. So that's a little bit about us in terms of, just a quick topical overview about Rootstock and how we're different. And now I'll go ahead and open it up to the key topic.
So to start off today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the return on investment. Purchasing a new ERP system is a big investment in both time and in money. You need to know what you can afford in order to be able to come up with an idea of how you're going to pay for it. To do that, you need to also probably convince your management before you start the project that you need to have a new ERP system and need to have an initial ROI that you've put together. But that will be refined through the entire process of doing the selection and the implementation. You don't always have all the information immediately. What you need to do is work with the vendors that you've selected to review and see what their systems provide as far as features and functionality. All ERP systems have long been able to capture transactional data for companies, but as David just showed, you can see that there are a lot of additional features and functionalities beyond the financial controls component of it that modern ERPs are providing. What you also need to do is have a plan set out once you've determined what you think you can get from the ERP as far as value, in order to be able to measure what those goals are and how you're going to track to make sure you're getting the kind of productivity and the profitability that you can get out of an ERP system. One of the major cost savings that you'll see in an ERP system is the capability of modern ERP systems to use the cloud and provide you with some of what has typically been considered on-premise IT organization and hardware. David, can you talk a little bit about how a cloud can help with the return on investment?
Sure. And I think you bring up some really great points in reference to ROI. And in fact, a lot of the kind of long tenured folks within the ERP space recognize that often a return on investment analysis or achieving a desired return on investment historically within ERP has been tough to do. It's been tough to accomplish. But to your point, as companies look towards moving in the direction of cloud ERP and tie this together with the concepts of digital transformation, they begin to realize that the opportunity to achieve return on those dollars spent and dollars invested in the technology can grow outside of just the concept of traditional transaction management and financial reporting, which you alluded to in reference to those typical associations of the benefits or the outcomes of an ERP project, and begin to extend into concepts like, how can I offer more to my customer? How can I make revenue growth part of my ROI with an ERP investment? And when I look at it from a cloud perspective, concepts like engaging in e-commerce initiatives so that you can grow the revenue capture opportunity by presenting products and services online to customers as part of an interconnected e-commerce and ERP investment. I think also I'd point out that you brought up a really good point, which is stay focused on the ROI through the process, not just do it as an element of your initial investment assessment. So, we did the calculations and we presented them to management and we know what we want to achieve. And now we get into the project and, we really need to continue to seed ourselves in the expectation around around that ROI and measure ourselves through the process.
Those are all really good points, especially being able to look at things beyond just transaction savings and savings on labor. You truly can start to look at the value of improving the customer experience. So as we move on, the next thing that we're going to talk about is ensuring that there is alignment with your executive team. We frequently see that the CIO is the major proponent of new ERP systems. But a modern ERP system shouldn't simply be looked at a purchase of software to capture and record transactions. You should look at this as a tool that your business team will use daily to monitor and improve their business process and meet your company goals. It really turns into more of a goal-setting piece of software where you try to achieve those goals and you look back into your business to try to figure out how you can change it in order to get over all of the bumps that you might find in your road to profitability. Implementation is going to require a huge commitment from the business. It's not just the IT staff. It means that you've got to support the project through time spent to identify the needs of the business, change to the processes within the business to the best practices that are frequently represented in the software package itself. These are very key to making the whole project a success. To get appropriate participation and ownership with the business, it's critical to have your C-suite aligned and equally committed to the project goals and success, not just the CIO. Frequently, executives think that an ERP is a necessary evil, and they don't realize the ways that it can help them achieve the goals that they're trying to accomplish or the strategies that they've put in place for the company. Through discussions at the beginning of the project, with an executive team, we can help educate the executive team to understand the value of the dashboards and the analytics that modern ERP systems provide and start to help put together a plan to put the dashboards and the analytics to work for you to make you more productive and add value to your company's bottom line. David, what is your perspective on how executive alignment enhances the success of an ERP implementation?
Yeah, I think everything that you pointed out really are the key points. I think the one thing I would maybe focus on or stress is the continuance of that support through the project. It's as important that the executives are aligned up front, that they are communicating the benefits and expectations about the project to the entire organization, that they're well versed in what the project means and what the expectations are organizationally, that they are supportive of those efforts in the beginning of the project. But from that point forward, they need to also be part of the postmortem and lessons learned. Once you're live running the ERP system, they need to be thinking at that stage, what's our phase 2? What's our next step? And every step in between, which means, they don't come to the project kickoff and then exit and leave it to the day-to-day team to manage the balance of the effort until they're called in with a priority issue or a business process change requirement or a key decision or a budget change, months into the project, only to have to then get back up to speed, realign. It really just disconnects the team from a sponsorship perspective when that key executive group doesn't stay close to the project and at a minimum, a steering committee consistent feed and supporting role throughout the life cycle of the project. And I think that continuation is a stress point I would make.
That's an excellent point, and it feeds right into our next strategy, which is don't lose sight of the project value. One of the problems with the executive alignment is sometimes they lose sight of the value of putting the ERP system in, and instead they begin to focus on other priorities. Unfortunately, that's can cause delays in an ERP selection and implementation, which will cost money if you've already purchased the ERP. You're spending money on software that you are not using. And it also means that you're not getting the future value in the project. A modern ERP system is usually there to provide you with labor savings so that they can be redeployed to more productive activities, but it can also increase sales by improving the customer's experience overall through a better sales experience and improved customer portal. That allows for also having better production improvements for both quality and reducing the time to deliver products. So all of those things add to value. And sometimes you have to keep bringing everybody back to what that value is in order to make sure that your implementation stays as a top priority for the organization. An ERP system may not be as glamorous or attractive as some of the other projects, but it definitely is the core to realizing some of the other projects more, providing input into the other projects and being able to provide information to make them more successful. David, have you seen customers extend implementations due to other priorities? And what have you seen that cause with customers?
Sure. I mean, we hear more and more today, and we put, frankly, pressure on ourselves as a leading ERP provider to shorten the cycles of implementation so that we can improve the time to value for our customers. And that's ultimately what the customer wants, is they make an investment, they make a commitment, and they want to get live on the ERP system as quickly as possible. But, it is ERP, right? I've often likened it to kind of the root canal of IT infrastructure technologies, because it is a painful process. It touches so many areas of the business. It creates the need to, rethink processes that are more advantageous to the customer, more advantageous to internal efficiencies, and also, fully leveraging this new technology investment that you're making. If your last ERP purchase was 10, 20, 30 years ago, think about the technology changes and all that new, modern cloud-based technologies can offer in terms of connectivity and efficiency in process and automated decision-making and AI. And all of those opportunities present, the opportunity at the same time. While they're great potential value adds to the business, they create the opportunity to miss focus and to lose focus over the life cycle of the project, whether it's just making those kinds of decisions, which are inherent to the ERP itself, or, the fact that, hey, our ERP project is estimated to be 6 to 8 months. 4 months in, we got this huge new customer, and they require that we do a CAD integration, for instance, to their system so that we can quote them more rapidly. Well, now I've got a revenue versus, existing project choice, and I may have to make the decision to say, hey, I need to take on this new customer for the long-term health of the business and the overall revenue opportunity it presents. How do we scope that and potentially rescope our ERP project so that we can, achieve what's required from a goal perspective? And that goes back to, the not losing sight, right? Too many times we see customers come into an instance, a fine point, a detail, oftentimes around business process or an existing feature or something we have in place today that's part of our legacy process. And we're evaluating something that we think is so key to the business because it's been that way forever. It's the way we've run a certain task or process forever, that we look at the new ERP system and maybe it's not an exact match to that process. So we start diving in, and pretty soon we're miles deep into the forest and have lost sight of the bigger picture and the fact that, the value comes from making our way through the forest as quickly as possible while still driving, the overall business benefit. And I think having, again, kind of tying some of these together, the concept of having an executive committee committed to that higher level, bigger picture and staying engaged throughout the process can help pull the day-to-day teams back up and help them see, hey, we can get 90% there on that feature set or that business process. It's close enough. Let's get back on track and get live, because that's where we can really drive value realization.
Well, I think you make a really good point, especially about getting deep into the woods. What I've seen on projects a lot of times are that people try to get the perfect implementation. So they spend a lot of time in analysis paralysis and in doing design over and over again to get it perfect. Modern ERP systems are pretty flexible, and you can always go back and change some of the decisions that you made, or change how you're going forward pretty simply. Do you have any comments about that, David?
I agree. I think that that's part of the reasons why customers are frankly looking forward to an opportunity to work in a modern ERP system for several decades, as compared to what they've had to survive through, in the past several decades of legacy ERP, or how legacy ERP still constrains their business today. There's so many concepts like, you look at business process. Business process is a key element of an ERP implementation. It ranks top three, probably even above the technology decision itself. Is what are you going to do from a business process perspective to ensure alignment with customer expectations, internal expectations, and that return. Those business processes in today's modern ERP systems can be reflected visually in flowcharts that actually drive processes, that drive approval workflows and order acceptance workflows and engineering change workflows. There's just example after example after example of being able to visualize your processes in modern tools. And they're calling on the ERP detailed activities behind the scenes as you work through those business processes. But at the end of the day, you get a new market opportunity that changes the way you're going to accept orders, for instance, or you're taking on e-commerce and that represents a new technology, but new business process. Those things can be easily brought in, or more easily brought in today than ever before, looking at the history of limited technologies and kind of fixed decision making in legacy ERP projects.
Well, and that's one of the beauties that I see in the Rootstock architecture, is that it means that you don't have to make all the decisions up front. For example, you don't have to figure out exactly what package you're going to integrate with, because you have options and you can get your core functionality in first and then worry about the integrations. Rootstock takes great advantage of that in the Salesforce platform, but you also see that with some of the other major ERP providers that also have app stores, where they have integrations that are fully certified, and it's relatively easy and very quick to be able to add those onto the core functionality of the system. Do you have any comments about that, David?
Yeah, I think I would concur. I think, the whole concept of how we as consumers are using our phones today and using our tablets and our mobile devices, we're used to saying, hey, I want to, load a new financial app, or download my, insurance carrier's app or my health app, or bring up a game and play it with my family. It's an app store mentality. And, that's where technology companies are striving toward on the business side of it, because we as business people, start first as people and, spend a lot of our time as consumers and consuming digital content on our personal devices. And that whole concept of buying an app to solve a unique problem, a specialized app that's highly efficient, comes into the business world space pretty easily. And to your point, Salesforce has mastered the concept of, the app store with their App Exchange. And the App Exchange offers thousands of products that are built directly inside of the Salesforce platform like Rootstock. And so connecting those apps become a business process connection instead of an intensive technology effort like it was historically. And the ability to have that flexibility to make choices about what can best serve my project, in particular because of the pace of change in the business world today. A technology that you chose even potentially months ago with new demands and new customers you're taking on, may morph into, a fit that's not as optimal as it was when you selected it, and you need to move and make a new cloud technology choice. So I think all those things, give more flexibility and opportunity within the project. But keep in mind too, that same kind of devil in the detail concept of don't get so caught up in those shifts and stay focused on the bigger picture value still comes to light in some of those detailed decisions as well.
Well, all of this also brings us to the next point, which is education, making sure that your team is educated. A lot of people think that just occurs once you've got the system up and running and you're doing software product training. But I don't necessarily agree with that as far as education is concerned. I think it actually starts at the very beginning that we were talking about with the executive team alignment. That's really an education process with the executive team to get them to understand that this is a system that's going to allow you to achieve the goals that you have for your company. It continues through the project in many ways. One of the things that we do at Ultra is recommend that you use cross-functional teams. What that means is that you don't just look at sales or at manufacturing, but instead what you do is you look across the organization and how that whole sales cycle works from end to end. So you're fulfilling, you're getting a lead to a sales order, you're fulfilling a customer order, you're understanding returns and customer service issues, but then you're also understanding credit and billing to your customers. It's more typical that companies use siloed mentality, but what that does is it opens up your team so that your team is learning about the problems of their coworkers, and it becomes more of a learning organization in general. It begins with the current state and gathering those business requirements, understanding the pain points across all of the departments. And then it continues with the demoing of multiple new systems so that you have a good idea of how they implement best practices and see which one fits you best. Dave, can you talk about some of your experiences in seeing a company transform through the process of system and selection and implementation, and how education feeds into that?
Yeah, I think you made really great points, and I think education is ultimately key. It's one of those, again, top 3 to 5 bullet points that you've got to address in a project like this. And you made a great point. Cross-functional education is critical because it allows individuals with responsibility in a particular business process area to have upstream and downstream visibility, right, across the whole organization. And I would maybe come back a little bit to a comment that we talked about as it relates to executive sponsorship through a project, which is also across time, right? So education can't be simply considered, okay, I've got a core project team. They're going to go through some courses, early on in the project so they can be equipped to, drive the piloting or the conference room pilot or the UAT. And then, 2 weeks before go live, we'll slot the other 200 users in across the company and all their departments in order to, go through their 1 week of training, and we'll flip the switch on January 1st and everybody will be off and running. I think that concept of continuing education throughout a project, from the project core team, through the subject matter expertise, the technical resources, and all the cross-functional business process areas, it is really necessary, as a continuum. And, along that whole line of, the advantages of modern technology, things like learning centers, ERP software solutions that are now allowing you to stand up test environments and go in with self-paced learning and self-paced education courses for your end users. You really open up a whole opportunity for them to create a lot more of repetitive education, which is critical as your entire team across your organization prepares for a huge change, frankly, when you flip that switch and you're moving into your go live phase.
I totally agree with that. In addition, I think it's really important that managers also are part of the education cycle. They need to understand how the system and the process has changed, and they need to be the leaders in the education of their teams to make sure that their teams know that it is supported by them and also that they understand how it's going to be used.
Really great points.
So moving on, the 4 topics that we talked about today come from a white paper that we have on the Ultra website. And you can go in and you can see what we talked about in a little more detail as it is outlined in the white paper, and also look at some of these additional strategies that are listed in that white paper. Kristen, can you tell them how to get there?
Definitely. We've got 2 resources that we'll be sending out to all of our registrants today. First is the 15 reasons you need ERP on Salesforce from our friends at Rootstock. And then, as Katrina mentioned, 7 essential strategies for a successful ERP project. From all of us here at Ultra, thank you to everyone for joining us, and thank you to our experts, Katrina and David, for sharing your expertise. We would like to wish everyone a great rest of your day, and we will see you at the next webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.